Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I've been waiting about 20 years to get this off my chest.
Okay.
I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, in the Army back in the early 2000s, 2002 to 05. We deployed in 03.
You already know what it is. It's your boy Laid Back with another reaction, another review, another episode. Hey, TikTok, you up to bat. Bah. It's your boy Laid Back. Welcome back to my channel. Hey, two things we got to do. You got to hit that subscribe button. I'm drinking this water. You already know what it is, man. You are the prize in 2025. You are the prize in 2025. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the notification bell. Stay up to date with all the videos. We back with another one. We got another paranormal, creepy, scary compilation here. So if you into this, make sure you share this with the last person you text in your phone, man. You make it to the end of this one, you a real one for real. We gonna see. I might have to go get the hoodie, I might not. But let's go ahead and get into it. Fire Squad, what's popping? Let's get it.
Creepy story time. If this is the type of content that you're into, feel free to follow along. I post a scary story every single day. The person who submitted this wishes to remain anonymous, so for the sake of the story, let's call him Victor. Now, Victor is a medium, which means that he is able to help people who have recently lost a loved one in order to deliver a message, or if they're having any type of experiences in their home. Back in 2006, his wife and daughter had recently moved to Texas. Around this time is when they came across a family that were having issues in their home. It started off very small, like pictures falling off the wall, dishes were being moved, and keys were going missing, but nothing too crazy, just mainly annoying. But as time went on, it started to get worse. Victor was called, so he decided to go over there and take a walk around. The minute Victor walked into this house, he felt it. Now, this family had two young children. One was about 4, the other one was 6. So Victor suggested that they lay baby powder on the ground to try to eliminate some of the noises and the things going missing, to see if it was maybe the kids messing around. The next day at about 9 a.m., Victor gets a call from the family. He ends up going to the house. When he walks in, they show him one of the rooms where they lay the baby powder, and very clearly in cursive, the name Casey has been written out.
Oh, no.
Now, Casey happened to be Victor's daughter's name, and there was no way that anyone in the house could have been the one to write it out, because there were no footsteps around the name.
What?
1, and 2, no one in the house knew his daughter's name. So Victor asked the family, "You guys know anyone by the name of Casey?" The family all responds with, "No, we don't know anyone by that name." Victor then tells the family that he cannot help them and starts to quickly leave the house.
Oh.
The family, of course, asks, "Why can't you help us? And who's Casey?" Victor explains to them that Casey is his daughter's name. And the fact that his daughter's name was written in cursive on the ground to him is a warning. Victor believed that this was a D word that was trying to come after him because he was helping the family.
Ooh, that gave me chills, I ain't gonna lie.
If you get scared easily, do not watch this. My son sees ghosts on a regular basis, and he also has told me about his entire past life. I've done a video about him in the past, about him confirming my miscarriage baby, whether it was a boy or a girl. I didn't even know I had a miscarriage. It was before he was born. I'd never told him, and he just told me the whole story. So every once in a while, he will like pop off with something. We don't ever like ask him or lead questions. He'll just like start talking. A couple weeks ago, we were driving in the car and we were talking about pregnancy. I have a friend that's pregnant, and we were talking about her growing a baby in her belly, and he was like, yeah, you grow and you grow and you grow and you get really old, and then you die and you go to heaven, and then you go back into somebody else's belly.
Whoa.
And I was like, that's not really how that works, I don't think. And he was like, no, yeah, it does. Like, I remember. He starts telling me this whole story about whenever he was a really old man, he got really sick and he died and he went to heaven, and he got to pick me as his mom, and that's whenever he came down and was in my belly. At that point, I got really confused. I was like, Beck, you've never been an old man. And he was like, yes, Mom. I was an old man. My name was John. I had 2 kids. Well, actually, I had 14 kids.
Whoa.
But we were in a really bad flood. We lived way, 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 way out, and it was before cars, and we were in a really bad flood, and all of my kids got in the yucky water, and they all got really sick, and they started throwing up blood. So a lot of them died. I had 2 kids left. One, his name was John too, and the other's name was Joni. I had John and Joni, and they were my kids. So told me he had a wife named Esther. I don't know where this was or what he was talking about. But he said he lived to be really old, and then his lungs got really tired and they stopped working, and he died and he went to heaven. Told me they live on a farm with a really, really, really long road to get to their house, so not very many people came out there. But he lived until he was really old. He then told me that he went to heaven, and he stayed up there for a really long time until it was his turn. He got to choose who he went to, and he saw me, and he saw my husband, and he decided that's where he wanted to go. The story was so in-depth. There's a lot more that I haven't said, so if you want to hear the whole thing, I can always post the whole thing, but it was so in-depth. He knew so many answers to so many questions. We were asking him, like, immediately he would answer, he would answer, he would answer. He knew the questions. It was crazy. He knew people in heaven that we've never even talked about. We're not super religious. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I don't know what I believe. I don't know who I believe, but there's something. And apparently, maybe reincarnation. You ever heard of kids talking about past lives or second lives? Because this is the first time I've ever hearing a kid talk about a second life, and it's kind of freaking me out.
That was scary.
So a follower DM'd me and told me he never told anybody this story in his life. He just got to get off his chest. So he DM'd me and he asked me to share this story with y'all. And I was like, shoot, I got you. So y'all, if you have any stories you want to share with me, DM me, let me know the story, and I will start doing these Friday. He goes, when I was 12, I used to sleepwalk, but nothing serious. So he said some nights he would just catch himself walking in the hallway. And even some nights he would catch himself waking up from sleepwalking, mumbling and shit. He said, but it was one night where everything was different. Everything felt off. So he goes, one day when he was sleepwalking, instead of being in the hall, he woke up in the kitchen. And when he woke up, what he seen was him sitting across the table from himself.
Whoa.
He said it was the same face, same pajamas, same smile, same everything. He said his heart was pounding. He said he tried to speak, tried to yell out for help, but he couldn't talk. He said he tried to move and he couldn't move. He was stuck. So he said he just sat there and couldn't do nothing, y'all. He said his eyes got wide. He said he began to tear up as he seen the person across from him, his copy, start leaning in towards him.
Oh.
And he got real close to him and whispered in his ear, go back to bed. This is not your time to be awake. He said then all of a sudden he blacked out. And next thing he know, he woke up and he was in his bed. He said, so when he woke up, he hopped right out of bed and he ran to his mother room. Mom. She goes, yes, sweetie. He goes, you would not believe what happened to me last night. And he explained everything that went on. And he said his mother said, baby, maybe you were just dreaming. And he said, no, he was telling her like, no, I was not dreaming, Mom. This was real. She said it could have been a realistic dream. He said she told him, go brush his teeth and wash his face. And she was going to go make some breakfast. So upon his mom walking into the kitchen, she seen footprints. The same footprints that her son has. One walking to the room, but then another set walking out the door of their kitchen.
What?
He said they had like a door in the kitchen that leads to the backyard. And it was too spaced for him to just jump over there. It was weird. There was no footprints leading to him walking over there to go out the door. It was one set one way and the other one the other way. He said, so when he was in the bathroom, his mother yelled, honey, come here. And he said, I told you, Mom, I was not playing. I didn't see none of these footprints, but I told you everything that happened, it was real. So she believed him. And that was the end of the story, y'all. If you like that story, make sure you like this video and share it. And like I said, if you got any scary stories you want me to do for you, make sure you DM me and we're gonna do these every Friday. Every Friday, I'm gonna pick a couple videos or a couple people that submit theirs first and we're gonna do them.
I got lost with the footprints. I completely got lost.
One of the scariest things that ever happened to me while babysitting, story time. Now, I was 15. I've been babysitting for a few years at this point, so I had a lot of experience with kids. They love me. Well, a family friend asked if I would go babysit their 7-year-old son for a couple of days while they went out of town to Myrtle Beach, so I said sure, that was great money for me. So the parents put their bags in the car, they showed me where everything is. Now, his mom made it clear to me that he has a very active imagination and that because his daddy let him watch horror movies the week prior, he's been having nightmares and making things up, saying that he's been seeing stuff around the house that's not there. So they get their stuff in the car, they give their son a kiss, and they leave. So I'm flipping through all the satellite channels, you know, checking out different shows, eating popcorn, little boy's playing with his toys, drinking his little juicy juice, and we're just having a good time. So I go in the kitchen to put a frozen pizza in the oven, and all of a sudden, this little boy comes flying out the living room, running up to me, and then wraps around my leg, just looking in the living room and then looking at me, back and forth. I said, damn son, are you okay? What happened? He said, she's in there, she's in there. I said, who's in there? He said, her, but I didn't see nothing. And before I can push him any further, he walks over and sits in front of the TV and starts ignoring me. We're sitting on the couch watching TV, and their couch was in the middle of the room, so you could walk around it. Well, this little boy starts looking behind the couch and then back at the TV. So I start looking back behind us. You know, it's like a natural reaction when you see somebody else doing that, you start doing it. The more he did this, the more I felt like somebody was standing behind us, but I don't see anything. So I get up and walk across the room, and from there I can see the hallway. And for a second, something stood out to me. At the end of the hallway, it looked like someone was peeking around the corner like this.
Hell no.
But when I cut the light on, it was gone. So I thought my mom was playing tricks on me. My anxiety's peaking, so I'm like, okay, it's the first time you've been left alone in someone else's house. Calm down, go take a shower and go to bed. But while I'm taking a shower, I get the weirdest feeling like somebody's standing outside of the shower curtain. Now, they had a big-ass bathroom. So I was like, dude, it's a new place. It's a big bathroom. You're not used to this. Just stop freaking out. But I have to keep sticking my head out the shower curtain to make sure nobody's there because I'm getting that vibe like somebody is there. So I peek out the shower again, and bam, this kid is standing in the doorway crying. I said, what's wrong? He said, it's gonna get me. It's in there. I just saw it. Can I stay here with you? I'm scared. I said, yes, stay right there. Just turn the other way. And then I dry off and get dressed in the shower so he can't see me. Now, it's about 11 o'clock at this point, and he's still wide awake. So we sit there and talk for a little while. We play with Legos, Play-Doh. I'm just trying to wear him out so he'll go to sleep. Well, finally, around 2 a.m., he falls asleep. Now, it was already so late, I didn't have time to unpack my clothes, so I just get in the bed and I go to sleep. About 10 minutes later, I hear this youngin' screaming again. Before I can even get out of the bed, I hear him thunk, 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 and he's already running into my room, jumps into bed with me. He's screaming to the top of his lungs, she's there in my room, behind the door. She's gonna get me if I'm alone. Please don't make me go back in there. So we're laying there in the bed together, and he says, I know you think I'm making stuff up. I promise you I'm not. She was there. I saw her. I said, honey, I believe you. It's okay. Just relax and close your eyes and start taking some deep breaths. This child has one hell of a grip on me. Like, he's wrapped around me like a python, so I could tell he was really scared. Like, he really thought something was going to snatch his ass off that bed. So I just held him and hoped that maybe he would calm down. Now, I know a lot of you would just tell these kids to hush and go to bed, but I'm not like that. I went through the same thing as a child. I would see things that were not there, and nobody else believed me. So I wanted him to know that I believed him and I was protecting him. Right. So I reach over to the nightstand and I tapped that old school touch lamp 3 times and put it on the brightest setting so it lit up the room. That way we would feel more safer and we'd get some sleep. Then I start hearing some distant thunder, and then it starts pouring rain. I think, oh, that sounds relaxing. So because of that storm, my ass knocked out. I was doing some good sleeping until about 30-40 minutes later. That was when I abruptly woke up to the bed shaking. It felt like a small tremor, like a little earthquake.
What?
So I'm trying to get my eyes adjusted and wake up and figure out why is the bed shaking. Apparently the storm knocked the power out because it was pitch black dark in that room, and the only time I could see anything was when the lightning struck. Well, once my head gets adjusted, I start hearing a noise like chattering of teeth. I'm laying there trying to figure out what the hell is that noise and what is shaking the bed. And that's when I look over and I see the little boy is sitting up on the other side of the bed with his hands holding the cover, and it's him shaking the bed. He's shaking that hard. And that chattering sound I heard was coming from his teeth. He was sitting here holding the covers with his eyes wide open and going, God, are you okay? Because I thought he was having a seizure, but when I looked at him, his eyes darted over to mine, and I realized he was awake. He was so scared. Like, he couldn't move. He was frozen, shaking and chattering. I'm like, well, if he's not having a seizure, what is wrong with him? And that's when it clicks. He's sitting here staring at the door, so I look at the door. Y'all, let me tell you, in that moment, when that lightning flashed, I damn near shit my pants. It scared me so bad. Have you ever been so scared that your hands and arms and legs start tingling, they damn near go numb? When I looked at that bedroom door, there was someone's head peeking around the door like this.
My God.
And you could only see their eyes. And when the lightning stopped flashing, I couldn't see anything anymore. It was complete darkness. Ooh. That was when it really hit me. Holy crap, we're not alone. There's someone else in the house and they're standing right there. But what really freaked me out was every time the lightning would strike, I could see more of that person's face. Like it started like this, and then this, and then I could see their actual mouth. This person was smiling ear to ear. I could barely take a breath in. All I could think was, what the hell is that thing? Then, of course, the lightning stopped flashing, so for a few seconds, it was completely dark.
Oh,
and I had that feeling
goodness.
again like someone was watching us and getting closer and closer, and I was starting to panic. And when lightning struck a few seconds later, I could tell they were getting closer because now this motherfucker, person, thing, or whatever, was now at the foot of the bed, peeking over like this, staring at us. At this point, my damn teeth were chattering. All I could hear was between the both of us. So I pulled that little boy up on my lap in my arms as tight as I could because I didn't want whatever it was to try to snatch him out of my arms, and I held him real tight. So now when the lightning flashed, we could see its whole face peeking over the bed, smiling, looking right at us. So that was when fight or flight kicked in for me, and I remember the dad telling me that he'd put a loaded pistol in the nightstand and behind the headboard of this bed, so I start reaching around for it. And for some reason, my gut was telling me, you better keep your eyes on this thing. Every time the lightning strikes, pinpoint where it is with your eyes and don't take your eyes off or it's gonna jump. Reaching, trying to multitask, keep my eyes on it, hold the little boy, and feel around for this pew-pew, and I finally feel it, and I snatch it out of that holster and I hold it up. When the lightning struck, I pointed at this thing. I said, if you take another step, I'm gonna blow you into the next room. Get out and leave now. In that moment, something happened. I don't know what it was, but I could feel me looking into it and it looking into me, and that lightning flashed, and then all of a sudden the power cut back on. And no lie, as soon as the power came on, it was gone. I snatched him up out of the bed, grabbed that pew-pew, and ran to the kitchen and called 911. I stayed on the phone with them, the police came, and then I called the parents. I put the cop on the phone, they're talking, and then they tell the cop that they're not coming back until Sunday. Even though we're telling them we think there's an intruder in the house and their child's here, they don't give a shit. They're not coming home. They think it's our imagination playing tricks on us because the power went out and we're getting freaked out with the storm and everything. What? So I made it very clear I was not staying in their house another minute, and I was going to take their child back to my family's house, and that's where we would be. And they said, okay, fine, we'll see you on Sunday. So I asked the little boy if that was the first time he saw this thing, and he said no, he'd been seeing it for months, but this was the first time it got that close. Now I knew he'd have to go back to that house, so the next day me and my cousin went over and cleansed the entire house, hoping it would help.
Yo, that is a crazy story.
This is my experience living in a haunted house for 6 months. In 2023, I decided that I wanted to move out my family home just to get a bit of my own space and do my own thing. Side note, I do not recommend this. If you can stay at home with your parents, save your money and stay. Anyways, so I was looking to rent in London originally, but we all know London rental prices is just like through the roof. It's insane. So I actually decided to move to Reading, which I did. And when I was like looking for a place to stay and a place to rent, I found this really beautiful house share in Reading, and it was really like affordable for what it was. And I got in touch with the people and I did an online viewing, so I never actually viewed it in person before I moved in there. Then everything happened really quickly. I paid my deposit, and then within like a week or two I moved in. First impressions, everything was so nice. There was no smell, the kitchen was well kept, my room was really nice, like everything was clean, my bathroom was like brand new. And then I met all my housemates and they were all such nice, lovely people, so I was really happy, and I just, you know, unpacked my bags and got settled in. So my first night I was just exhausted because I spent the whole day moving, you know, settling in, and I was just so exhausted. And when I first got into the bed and like laid down, I just felt like a really weird presence. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It was just like a weird vibe, but I just brushed it off and I went to bed because I was just so tired. I didn't care, to be honest. At that point I thought, okay, whatever, I'm gonna go sleep. So after my first few nights staying there, I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but something was so wrong. Like, something was off. Like, when I was getting ready, I just felt really like eerie, and it would be like a very uncomfortable like silence, a very uncomfortable like atmosphere. And then it started with nightmares. I started to get the worst nightmares, like vivid nightmares, and I used to wake up in the middle of the night like sweating and my heart pounding.
Dang.
So I spoke to my mum and tried to explain it to her that I'm having this really weird like feelings in these nightmares, and she literally was like, Isla, don't worry, maybe it's because you moved into a new place, you're just like overthinking everything, like don't worry, just pray, you know, and you'll be fine. So whatever, I still couldn't get a good night's sleep, but I just pushed through it, like, you know what I mean, like I just tried to get on with it and get on with my life. And then one day I woke up and my whole railing was like, my curtain railing was on the floor, but I didn't hear it fall in the night. And like, obviously it could have been just like a faulty curtain. So I just text my landlord and whatever, they sorted out, but I'll put a picture here of like what it looked like in the morning when I woke up. So yeah, I actually took this picture later on in the evening because that morning I was rushing out the door for work. But yeah, this is the curtain and how it fell on the floor, and I heard nothing in the night. My curtains got fixed in a few days, that was no problem, but even within those few days, imagine sleeping on the ground floor with no curtains. Like, I was scared because I was thinking, what if someone's like peering through my windows? But I survived. After that, I started to hear and smell stuff. I would hear like knocks and taps in the night.
Oh no.
And I would smell the most revolting, disgusting smell.
Hell
but during
no.
the day, I couldn't smell it, like I wouldn't smell it. So I went to my housemates and I said to them, like, are you guys hearing these taps and these knocks in the night? And are you smelling like what I'm smelling? And they all like, no, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, we don't hear anything, we don't smell anything, like it's all fine for us. So out of curiosity, I asked them who lived in my room before me. And they told me there was this one girl that they rarely ever saw. She wasn't very friendly, she wasn't very talkative, they just left her to it. And they said she stayed in her room for literally 24 hours of the day. She never left her room, but every time they would walk past her door, it would smell so badly, because my room's like the main hallway on the bottom floor. It would just smell so badly. And when she actually finally just randomly moved out unannounced, they had actually a little look in her room. So this is when she handed in her keys. They had a look in her room and they literally told me there was piles of trash and dirt and rubbish everywhere. There was like just stuff everywhere. So I was just getting really freaked out, because I'm putting all of this together in my head and I'm just thinking, what was this girl doing in this room? And I was just getting more scared. And one night I went to sleep and I felt a pressure on my stomach. Like, I don't know how to explain this. I was dreaming and I dreamt of like somebody coming over me, and I woke up, but I still felt like I was dreaming. And I couldn't move. Like, I just had this presence and this like really heavy force on my chest. And I literally felt like I was like that forever. And then eventually, like, I kind of shook out of it and I was crying. I was like literally so scared, but I had nowhere to go. So I just had to like, I literally got up and I prayed and I just went back to bed. But I struggled to go back to sleep. Like, I felt like I was awake the whole night. So after that happened, the next following days, like obviously I was really scared. I was struggling to go to sleep. But after a week or so, weirdly, everything just felt fine. Like, I just didn't feel like scared anymore. I didn't feel a presence anymore or anything, and I just got on with my life. Like, I just almost like I just forgot about it, and I just was going to sleep fine. Like, I wasn't waking up in the night anymore. I wasn't really having nightmares anymore, and it just kind of felt like everything went away, or I thought so. One day I was working from home and I hear a screech and a bang, and I look towards my window and I see a bird has hit my window and fell. And I quickly jumped up literally within a second to go look out my window, and nothing was there. Like, nothing was there. I can swear to you guys, I heard a screech and I saw a bird hit my window and it just dropped.
What?
And then nothing. Like, when I was looking around, I was looking out the window, checking to see if there's any marks on the window. There was literally nothing. And I was just like so freaked out, because I was like, what the hell? More of like, oh my God, like a bird has just died and hit my window. And then it started again. I started to get nightmares again. I couldn't go to sleep at night. I kept hearing things again. I kept smelling things again. It just started all over again. And then I had another similar experience where I woke up in the night, felt like something was on me, but I couldn't move. And that morning when I woke up, I kind of smelled like a burning smell, and I freaked out and I texted the group chat going, has anyone burnt something? Like, I can smell a burning thingy. And they were like, no one's burnt anything. So I went to go open my curtains, and a clump of blonde hair was sitting there on my windowsill inside. To let you know, there was nobody living in the house at the time that was blonde. The girl that stayed in my room before me, she was not blonde. And also, if you think back to when my curtain broke, my curtains got replaced. So I had brand new curtains put up, and the guy who put my curtains up was bald. There was no way this blonde bit of hair would have just been laying in my windowsill. There's no way. So this is the piece of hair that I found, and if you look close, you can see like it's knotted. Like, somebody's got a bit of hair, wrapped it up and then knotted it and then placed it on my windowsill. Even looking at this photo again just gives me jitters. Like, it really freaks me out. So after I saw that, I thought, nah, there's no way. Like, how the hell can this get there? So I flashed it down the toilet. Now I should have known I should have burnt it, but I flashed it down the toilet, packed up my bags, and I left. Because I thought, there's no way in hell. The bird, the hair, the noises, the feeling of someone being on top of me in the night, you know, like the smell, like everything, the nightmares. This was it for me. And I was like, what's going to happen next? Like, what is this? Like, it looks like black magic. So I packed up my bags, I went straight back to my mom's house, and I had to keep paying rent for the next couple of months, but I was just so scared and I just couldn't live there.
Yo, what?
I'm going to show you guys what entirely convinced me that ghosts are real. I've always believed in them, but I've always been like suspicious just because I've never seen anything myself. But I can't believe I've never shown this on TikTok before. I'm going to show you a photo, but let me give you like a little backstory. So my mom does body painting, basically, where she paints like clothing on models. And back when I lived at home, this was so long ago, I think I was in early high school or something, she had a model over, basically had a mirror set up in our kitchen, and this model had a little BlackBerry phone, and that's how you know it was so long ago. But she had a BlackBerry, and she took a photo of like her in the mirror, like holding it like this. And unfortunately I only have like the cropped in version where you can see like the ghost in the photo. But in the background was like our hallway, and our hallway had nothing in it. There was like some pictures on the wall and stuff like that, but in the hallway you can see like an entire figure, and you can see his shoes, and like he's wearing a top hat, he's holding a baby. And then if you really zoom in and go into detail, like my dad blew it up on the computer and you can see like more different faces and heads and everything. The photo is not great quality, obviously, because it's from a BlackBerry, but I promise you, let me just show you it and then maybe you'll believe me. All right, I'm gonna try to show you guys this the best I can. This is the model. She's facing a mirror. This is the hallway in the back. Like there's nothing in this area of the hallway. The photos on the wall are right here, and then it's just like, you know, a hallway to walk through. Here is the man. If you can't see that, like, I don't even know what to say, because that is so blatantly obvious and like there, that there's like a man, his face, he's wearing a top hat that has like a gold buckle on it. And then down below, let me see if I can like move myself. I don't know if you can see it in this
shoes
crop, the way that it's cropped, but you can also see he has like 2 shoes on right here. And then if I can zoom into the photo, I feel you guys are gonna all think I'm crazy, but if you zoom into the photo, you can see right here there's like a little, it looks like a little skeleton, but it's like looks like he's holding a little baby. Like you can see the mouth and the 2 eyes. I swear I'm not crazy. This was like the most wild thing ever, seeing this photo and this man right here. Like you can't tell me there's not a man right there. There's nothing there on the wall in the background. Like it should be just blank, empty. And the model was convinced that it was like a smudge on the mirror. Like she didn't want to believe it, but I believe it. So another weird thing that happened after we had seen this photo, like a few weeks or a few months later or something, I came home one day and one of the light bulbs had like burst. Like
what?
It was still screwed in, but the glass had burst and it was just on the ground, and it looked like someone had swept it into like a perfect little pile. But my sister was the only one home. She was upstairs, and I went upstairs and was like, did you do this? Why did you break the light and not clean it up? And she was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like I didn't hear anything. And this light had literally just like exploded out of the light fixture on the ceiling, and it was like right around the area of where that photo was taken. So I feel like these ghosts or like spirits or whatever you want to call them were just like passing through our house, or maybe they like would pass back and forth. I really don't know. And I never saw anything else after that. I never tried to. I don't know if I'm someone who can really see ghosts. I feel like some people can and some people can't, but that photo in itself, especially because it was in my house taken, convinced me 100%, because I was like, there's no way that a photo could show that. And I feel like old phones could show things like that, like could capture that more than like the newer phones can. Like I feel like we take photos all the time. I've never seen anything on like my iPhone, but I feel like the older phones, like the Blackberries and things, and maybe because it was like reflected in a mirror, I don't know. Call me crazy, but to me that convinced me enough to know for sure that they exist.
Hell nah, man.
If you're easily scared, don't watch this at night. Personal spooky story time, and we're gonna call this one That Wasn't My Brother. When I was about 18 years old, I had gone out, and I had a very strict dad growing up. If you're Mexican or Hispanic, you know, my curfew was at midnight. Thankfully, my sister would cover for me, and she would hide pajamas in the restroom. That way, if I got home late, I would go straight to the restroom, I would change, and if he caught me coming home late, I was already in my pajamas, and I'd be like, what do you mean I was in the restroom? So this specific night, I get home past my curfew, I go straight to the restroom, I use the restroom, wash my face, brush my teeth, put on my pajamas. The way that our house is set up is a long hallway, restroom, my bedroom, my brother's bedroom. But as you're walking to the bedrooms, the living room is right here. So as I'm walking to my bedroom, the house is dark as hell. Our front door has glass and the porch light kind of gleams in. So I'm walking to my bedroom and I happen to look in the living room, right in front of our front door. I see a little boy and he's standing there. But what's crazy is the way that he's standing in this perfect spot, the light cuts off right here. So I can see from here down, but I can't see his face. His face is literally black. Like I can't see any features. I can't see nothing. I'm not exactly sure what he's wearing, but it looks like overalls or something like that. My first instinct isn't, oh my God, that's a ghost. My instinct is, what the hell is my brother doing awake right now? So I stand there and I'm calling for my brother. I'm literally like, Eric. My brother's name is Eric. So I'm whispering and I'm like, Eric.
Hell no.
Trying to make sure that my parents don't hear me because it's about 3 a.m. and my brother is just standing there. And I'm like, God. Eric. Nothing. No movement. Nothing. So I'm literally standing there for what feels like forever, waiting for my brother to cut his shit out and fucking go lay down because I'm about to get my ass kicked. And he's just standing there. So now my wheels are turning and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And when I tell you this is the most I've ever been scared, like I was shook, I was shitting myself. I decide, okay, I'm gonna go to my brother's room. Turn on my flashlight.
He in there.
I'm looking and my brother is asleep in his room. I was so scared. I didn't even go back to my room. Like I was freaking out. I've talked about my mom's house being haunted before. What's crazy is that it's inexplainable because my dad built their house. I'd understand if it was like an older house or something like that, but it was a new house. Like I have not done any research on the land, if there used to be something there, if something happened there. I have not done any research, but I have seen and heard so many things inside that house. It is fucking haunted. It wasn't a mimic because now that I think about it, this little boy was definitely younger than my brother, and we've seen him many times. He loves to play peekaboo.
Hell no.
We have 2 living rooms in my parents' house, and my mom was always in the smaller living room in her recliner, and a wall separates both living rooms with a half moon, and she says that she'd be there in the morning and this is the wall and she could see the little boy like peeking.
Hell nah.
And when my mom would go and look, he'd kind of like,
hell nah.
Or if this is the wall, he'd kind of like, you know? But at least it's a friendly ghost. If you guys have any spooky stories that you'd like to share with me, please send them via DM or email, and I'd love to read them. And I will see you guys in the next spooky story. Bye!
Man, no. Ain't no peekaboo, nothing. Hell nah.
This is one of the scariest stories I've ever heard. A woman on Reddit shared her experience as a recent divorcee that was starting over. She started renting a new apartment and was really excited for a clean slate. Her new place was really nice. It was one of those types of complexes that even has a doorman, so she felt really safe there. At the time of her story, she'd been dedicating a lot of time to her job and would work late most nights, get home in the early morning hours just to get a few hours of sleep and have to wake up and do it all over again. She would wake up in the morning to start getting ready for work and realize that she had been so tired and out of it that she kept leaving the door unlocked. And then she started to notice that things inside of her apartment would seemingly go missing. At first, it was just small things like nail polish, her hairbrush, things that at first she was certain she had just been misplacing. But then it turned into more personal things like pictures, shaving razors, and most disturbingly, her underwear. This started to make her feel really on edge. So she started to make sure that she was being more intentional about locking her door at night. She would get in the habit of doing it every single night before going to sleep and then would repeat over and over again out loud that she had locked the door. But morning after morning, she would still wake up to find her door unlocked, and she couldn't understand how this kept happening. So she decided to invest in a camera. One night after returning home from work, she set the new camera up and hid it underneath a pile of towels on the floor. She made sure to lock the door and then she went to bed. When she woke up the next morning, everything in the apartment looked normal and nothing seemed to be missing, but the door had somehow been unlocked. So she decided to check the footage from her new camera. She had to fast forward through hours of footage, but couldn't find anything. Right when she was about to give up, she noticed the door handle jiggle and then the door slowly crept open. A figure slid through the open door and walked toward the camera. The woman got so scared that she immediately paused the footage and called police. While she was on the phone with 911, she studied the figure on the camera footage and knew without a doubt that it was her apartment's maintenance man. She played the tape a little bit more and could see him walking around her apartment comfortably as if he were in his own home. Then she watched as he turned to walk toward her bedroom just out of view of the camera. The police arrived at her doorstep and she showed them this tape. The officers assured her that they would catch this guy, and she was so exhausted from this entire ordeal that after the police officers had finished their report, she went to lay in bed and take a nap. As she laid there, she was completely drained but still unable to fall asleep. That's when a chilling realization began to wash over her. When she watched that tape, she saw the man enter her home, but she never saw him leave. She sat up in bed and quickly looked around the room. She didn't see anybody, but she kept her attention focused on her bedroom door. In a rush to get to safety, she swung her legs over the side of her bed. Her feet hit the cold wood floor, and then she felt warm breath on her ankles. She raced out of her room as quickly as she could and caught the police officers just as they were leaving. When they went inside of her apartment, they found her maintenance man hiding under her bed, clutching a knife and a Polaroid camera.
What? Yo, what?
Imagine it's 1 a.m. and you get a knock on the door. It's the police and they tell you they got a 911 call from a landline registered to your address. He said it was a man who called in and said that a woman and her children were hurt and they needed help. You're a single mother, home alone with your 3 children. There's no man in your house, and you don't have a landline phone. I've been telling scary stories on here that you guys have sent to my email. This might be the creepiest one yet. Oh, this one gives me cold chills. So this follower, we'll call her Sage for the sake of the story. She moved to Allen County, Kentucky in August of 2005. It was just Sage and her 3 kids. She had bought a house way out in the boonies. She had one neighbor which lived like an acre away, but the next neighbor was over a mile away. The house was surrounded by woods in the back. She worked late, so she would get home at night and she would run from her car to her door because she was so scared. She said there was always like this sense of impending dread. They would always hear noises and activity coming from the woods that didn't sound like animals. She never felt comfortable in the house either. It always felt like they were being watched. And one night at 1 a.m., she heard someone banging on her front door. She opened the door and there was a police officer standing there. They told her they had received a 911 call from a landline registered to her address. He said it was a man who called that said a woman and her children were hurt and needed help. But she had no house phone. The wires had been cut from the box to the house. There was no man in her house either. Remember, it was just Sage and her 3 kids. After they searched the house and found out nobody was there, the officer left. She went on back to bed. I don't know how you go to bed after that, but she did. But shortly after, someone or something started banging on the back door of her house. She got up to go look and see what was going on, and no one was there. And then she heard footsteps across her roof. The noises continued until dawn, but then everything went silent and she never experienced anything like that ever again. But still, she felt like there was always something watching her from the woods. Y'all, how creepy is that? She ended up moving back to Arizona the next February. Let me know what y'all think about this one in the comments. If you have a creepy or paranormal story that you want to share, send it to my email. It's linked in my bio.
Man, don't move to the boonies, man.
If there was ever a story that I wanted you to stay to the end for, it would be this one. So get ready because this story is absolutely terrifying, but the ending is whoa. I don't know how people function after experiencing something like this, but here's your warning. So tonight's submitter's name is V and they have 2 friends. One's name is Zay and one's name is Robbie. They are brothers and directly across from their house is the only morgue that they have in their small town. Zay and Robbie live in a house where the upstairs is finished, but the downstairs is not finished. And this is where Zay and Robbie's rooms are. Now, their entire family is in agreement that the entire house is haunted and they joke about it all the time. Multiple times when V would go over to Zay's house, his older brother Robbie would be at after school activities, so he wouldn't be in the house whenever V would go over there. Now, one time specifically, specifically, even though this would happen to them often, they heard running on the main floor. So because they heard this, they ran upstairs to see if any other family members were home, but no one was home, not even his mom, no one. So they went downstairs and they started joking about it being a ghost when suddenly they started hearing blaring music playing upstairs. They both freaked out and just stayed in the basement. Now, another time that V was over there, Robbie sent him to the basement to grab shorts that were in a dresser. It was hot and in the middle of July, so the basement windows were lighting up the whole entire basement. The lights were also on, and he remembers when he got down to the basement, it was so hot that he was literally sweating buckets. He ran to the right side of the basement where the dresser was and he grabbed Robbie's shorts. But he also accidentally knocked over a bunch of glass bottles that were sitting on the dresser on the floor. The second he heard them clatter to the floor, it became so cold he could literally see the breath in front of his face.
No.
He didn't really think anything of it until he turned around and it just became pitch black. It felt like the basement was an endless, huge black void. He started panicking and tried looking over at the huge windows. Then he froze because something was standing 2 yards in front of him. It was a weird humanoid figure. Very pale, fleshy skin, but his face was completely gone. Like his skull was exposed, but there was dry, brown, clumpy red blood all over it. Not dripping, but very gory and scary. He doesn't know why or how to explain it, but he felt like it was a very masculine presence. He just froze and then started screaming at the top of his lungs. It was standing in the doorway, so he ran to the right of it where he thought the wall was. Through the wall. The wall was unfinished wood, so he could just run in between the boards. And when he did, he could see the stairs ascending from the black void. He ran towards it, but he could feel this thing behind him. He could hear it panting. He could smell the blood. He got to the top of the stairs and everything was normal again. He then went to his friends and he's like, "Why didn't you come for me when you heard me screaming?" And they were both like, "We didn't hear any screaming." He later asked about the beer bottles on the dresser and he found out that they were old beer bottles from the 80s. They had found them inside of the morgue dumpster. This part is one of the craziest parts of the story. You didn't think it could get any crazier than that? Well, it does. Flash forward to about last year and he went to their house every single day after school. After a couple of hours, he would walk home, but when he would leave, their elderly neighbor would be on her porch in her rocking chair. She would just be staring at the morgue. She had these creepy, piercing, bright blue eyes. He would make conversation with her. He would ask how her day was, and then he would walk home. Then this cat started showing up at his house, and he would go outside and play with it and brush it. She, the cat, was fluffy, white and black, and had brown eyes. She would sometimes follow him home. The next day, he went over to Zay and Robbie's house. When he got to their house, they were standing outside, and they told him that the cat belonged to the elderly neighbor, and unfortunately, the cat got away because the elderly neighbor had passed away 2 weeks prior and was laying on the kitchen floor for 2 weeks unalive. Dang. He then began freaking out, and it was like, "I just talked to her. Does she live with somebody else?" Nope, she had lived alone. The next time he saw the cat, he literally froze. He specifically remembers his cat having brown eyes, but while he was staring at it in that moment, it had piercing blue eyes. He stopped going to their house for a while after that. So what do you guys think about the story? Literally, the thing in the basement, first of all, that would have been the end for me right there. I would have been like, I'm never going over to your house ever again, ever. What do you guys think that was? Do you think that was demonic? What do you think that was? I mean, it didn't hurt him or do anything, but it sounded like it did chase him and he only saw it once. But I'm surprised that the family didn't see that, especially because those kids lived in the basement. How did they not see that thing? That is so creepy to me. I want to know what that thing was. And also the old lady, that is so terrifying. You're speaking to an old woman that has been unalived on her kitchen floor while you're talking to her on her porch. It sort of sounds to me, V, like you have a gift. I'm just letting you know. I think you have a gift. I think you can see spirits. And obviously, especially because you're the only one who are seeing these things in these people's house, like, obviously you can see spirits and it's probably something that you should get help with. Otherwise, this could go on for a long time and you could continue to keep seeing scary spirits and not know how to handle it or control it. And this could be very either harmful for you or scary for you. That is just my opinion. So I hope that you do get help for this because it can be a gift, but it can also be a curse. What do you guys think about that? Tell me your opinions. We both want to know your thoughts and your opinions in the comments, please. I believe he may be in the comments. I did read this story in a live last night and he was in the live and he was answering questions. So definitely drop any of your questions, thoughts, opinions, all in the comment section.
I don't know about that story. I'm gonna keep it 100.
This is one of the most terrifying ghost stories I've ever heard. If you're new here, hi. I used to talk about some pretty scary stuff, and recently I opened an email which allowed everyone who finds this page to submit their ghost stories. And let me tell you, not only have I been getting a lot of submissions and a lot of ghost stories to read that are from every corner of the world, I have been reading the most terrifying, haunting, bone-chilling stories I've ever heard in my life. And this is without a doubt one of them. So let's get into it. This story comes from Orly, who at the time was 10 years old. So Orly and her family head up to Springfield, Illinois to help with her aunt who had stage 4 breast cancer. However, Orly's family did not want to stay at Orly's aunt's house because they didn't want to overwhelm her with the amount of people in her house. So they stayed with her aunt's friend. And this property was a huge house from the 1800s that sat on a prairie. They all arrived pretty late at night, so they were just shown to their rooms and they went to bed. Orly stayed in the same room with her 2 other sisters, and her parents slept in a separate room. And it is at this point in the story where I got chills. Orly says she wakes up in the middle of the night to a man sitting on her legs staring at her.
Oh,
he was wearing old clothing and he had suspenders and he looked about 60 to 70 years old. And she notes that it was really weird because she could see him so vividly but could not feel his weight on her legs.
Whoa.
Orly tried to get the attention of her sister, but no sound was coming out because of how terrified she was. So she pulled the sleeping bag up over her face and just thought it was a dream and tried to wake herself up. After a few minutes, she knew that she wasn't sleeping, so she pulls the sleeping bag back down over her face and hopefully whatever was sitting on her legs would be gone. But he wasn't gone. In fact, he did a full 180 and instead of staring at Orly, he was staring just straight ahead and she was unable to see his face.
Oh.
And now Orly is convinced that this is real. So she just pulls the sleeping bag back over her face and forces herself to go to sleep.
What?
When Orly woke up the next morning and got into the car with her family to drive to her aunt's house, she told her family what she saw. Her parents exchanged a glance and then said, "Did you see his wife?" And it turns out that her parents had also had a very similar experience.
Whoa.
Her parents woke up and saw the same man that Orly saw standing over their bed. And the second time, they saw him and his wife sitting at the foot of their bed staring at them.
Oh, no.
And the following morning, they talked to the owner of the property that they stayed at. And she confirms that, yes, this couple used to live on the property and regularly interacts with her, the owner of the property. The owner of the property says that she can see them walking through the prairie sometimes. She can hear them walking through the house, and sometimes they move things in the kitchen. Not only that, her dogs can see these people too and also interact with these spirits. And Orly says at the end of this that for years she's been trying to come up with an explanation to this because nobody believes this story. But there is no other explanation, and even when she goes to her parents to ask if she just imagined this whole thing up, and she explains and describes this man that she saw, they remember it just as vividly as she does. I personally believe the story 110%. What really got me was when he was sitting on her legs in the middle of the night. I don't like that. But that's gonna do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
Hell no, man. Just sitting there and no.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I've been waiting about 20 years to get this off my chest.
Okay.
I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, in the Army back in the early 2000s, 2002 to 2005. We deployed in 2003. My unit got back in 2004-ish. And our company was assigned to a bunch of details, like other vets will tell you what's up with that. But there was like funeral detail, gate guard, like all this other stuff. And since I only had a couple months left on my contract, my platoon sergeant sent me over to the gym, Long Gym. It was a fairly modern building, not old. Some of the buildings on Fort Riley are pretty antiquated. It's an old post, right? And so yeah, no big deal. So I go over there, and one of the things that I noticed right away is when I was up on the second floor by myself, I always felt like I was being watched. It was this really weird, eerie feeling. The gym is 2 floors. It has a big glass front, from what I remember. You go up the stairs immediately, you're on the second floor. It's got a bunch of gym equipment, like not free weights, but like the machines. And to your left was a balcony that looked out over a basketball court on the first floor. So just for layout. And you go right in, there's a hallway, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, yeah, I was got this creepy feeling about being up there by myself. So months go by, like it's now late fall. And if you know anything about Kansas or the Midwest at all, is that in places like that, the wind never stops blowing. And in this particular night, it was cold and it was rainy. And earlier in the day, we were told that the brigade was having a mandatory fun day. That sounds as lame as it's as lame as it sounds. Where you're voluntold to hang out with them and have big fun. So the whole brigade was supposed to like play soccer and volleyball outside. Well, because the weather was so shitty that they would be bringing in the gym. So we had to clean. And if there's one thing in the military, we'll teach us how to clean something. Anyway. So that night, it's just blustery and cold and gross, and nobody's coming into the gym because nobody's leaving the barracks. Nobody's coming here. Everybody's warm. Everybody is warm. And so we cleaned our butts off. Like, we scrubbed the place down from stem to stern, or so I thought. But anyway, me and this guy named Doherty, he's like, I'm 6'3". This guy's like 6'4", and corn-fed, big boy, right? So we go up to the second floor to walk through, and he gets out ahead of me. And so, just being kind of silly, but also kind of testing a theory, I shut the lights off on him as he got like halfway through the second floor. I've never seen a dude that big move that fast and that gracefully, by the way, back to me toward the light. And he was like, dude, don't turn this light off. I said, why not, James? And he was like, because I always feel like I'm being watched up here. And I was like, okay. So the night goes on, and it's about 20 minutes to close. It's almost 20 minutes to 9 or 8, something like that. And it's nasty, dark. Nobody's coming in. So I go ahead and send my crew home. We all have to be there at 7 a.m. for this mandatory fun day. So I sent them off and locked the door behind them. Well, I'm walking through the gym one last time, making sure everything's the way it's supposed to be. And I'll kiss your bare ass if we didn't miss the biggest room in the house, the basketball court. There's dust all over this floor. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. We had managed to pull the bleachers out, but we missed the biggest floor. Anyway, no big deal. I have nowhere to go. It's a Thursday night. I remember it's a Thursday night. Ain't shit going on. So I grab my broom and I'm sweeping. And I'm, as Joss Whedon referred to in Buffy, is having happy non-thoughts. You know what I mean. You're not thinking of anything. Nothing positive, nothing negative. You are not having thoughts. And I'm just sweeping along. Well, at one point, it felt like somebody was standing directly behind me. Like directly. Like right at my back. And I thought that James had somehow gotten back in. And that fucker was messing with me. And with broom in my hand, I spun around. And nobody was there. Okay. Not fun, but whatever. And I'm off doing my thing again. And, all of a sudden, I had these really, really bad thoughts. Like, really intrusive, really bad thoughts. Like, if something were to happen to you, nobody would care. If you were to disappear, nobody ever come looking for you. Nobody loves you, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was an awful string of really, really bad thoughts. And being a preacher's kid, now I'm nervous. It's not cool. Like, what I'm feeling. Like, that's not me, right? And so when I get nervous, I begin to sing Amazing Grace to myself, because I'm by myself, and it's now a little spooky. And the amount of malevolence and the amount of anger and just rage, unlike anything I'd ever experienced before in my life, was suddenly directed at me.
What?
I was singing the wrong song. It would be like Biden showing up to a Trump rally. Bad. It was bad. It was real bad. And I closed my eyes because it hit me like a wave, and I closed my eyes for just a second. And in my third eye, in my mind's eye, the bleachers were full of people. And the balcony was full of people. And that glass wall up on that second floor looking over was full of people. And they were not happy with me at all. And I began to quote the 23rd Psalm. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. And my mind switched over to when Jesus asked the madman Gadara, who are you? And the demons answered back, Legion, for we are many. And I said, okay, you got the gym for the night. And I forcibly walked to the door back into the hallway. Because I knew if I would have started running, something was going to get me at that door. It wanted me afraid. I think it wanted me to hurt myself. And I was alone and vulnerable. I put my stuff away. I grabbed my car keys and I drove back to the barracks. I got in my barracks room. I got under the covers and I called my dad. Nothing like that has ever happened to me since then. Nothing like that ever happened before. But I really, honest to God, believe something. I honest to God believe I met a demon or demons. I think those words are the same. I think they're the same thing. That's the feeling they gave me anyway. But yeah, that's my ghost story. And I don't want to have another one. So thanks.
Man, that sounded crazy as hell. All right, guys, that was another TikTok compilation, man, of some more scary paranormal story times. And look, if you got a scary story, if you got an experience, put it in the comments, man. And y'all let me know shit. Should I start reading some of these stories? Because some of these stories be sounding crazy. For real. Like, some of them don't even sound real. You know what I mean? I'm just going to keep it 100 with you. But if you made it this far, you a real one for real. And like I said, man, share this with somebody in your phone who's into this paranormal story time, all this type of self-love and positivity. Self-love and positivity. Until next time, Fire Squad, I got you and you know it.